For 20 years, the Witmore estate had been a gilded cage for Eleanor Witmore. The air, once filled with laughter and music, now carried the heavy silence of unfulfilled potential. Every polished marble floor, every glittering chandelier, and every priceless painting was a reminder of the vibrant life she had once led and the one that had been stolen from her. An insidious, unexplainable illness had robbed her of the use of her legs. One moment, she was the epitome of grace and strength, dancing at a gala in a golden gown, her laughter echoing through the grand ballroom. The next, she was a prisoner in her own body, a cruel twist of fate that struck without warning. The world's most renowned doctors, with their polished shoes and practiced smiles, had all given the same verdict. Her condition was permanent. Eleanor fought at first, her spirit a caged beast, demanding experimental therapies and exotic diets. She spent a fortune, chasing a flicker of hope that never materialized. With each passing year, her hope drained from her like water through cupped hands. She began to retreat into herself, a proud, fiery woman shrinking into a fragile figure confined to a wheelchair. Her once meticulously styled hair was often unkempt, and her eyes held a distant, resigned sadness. Her son, Daniel, had grown accustomed to her condition. He cared for her in his way, hiring the best nurses and making sure she had everything she needed. But his belief in a possible recovery had long since vanished. To him and everyone else in the estate, the wheelchair was a permanent fixture, a throne and a prison rolled into one. The silence in the estate was not peaceful. It was suffocating, a silence that came from the death of dreams. Then came Grace. Grace was not like the others. A black woman in her mid-30s, she moved with a quiet dignity that was both unnerving and refreshing. She was not intimidated by the grand estate or the legendary Witmore name. The other staff members tiptoed around Eleanor's moods, but Grace met her with a calm resilience. On her first day, Eleanor, in a moment of bitter frustration, snapped at Grace for rearranging books on a mahogany shelf. "Leave them be. I want them exactly where they were," she had snapped. Grace didn't bow her head or apologize endlessly like the others. Instead, she calmly replied, "I only moved them so you could reach them easier, ma'am." It was a simple, thoughtful act that chipped the first piece off Eleanor's hardened shell. Over the weeks, Grace's silent language of observation began to reveal the true depths of Eleanor's pain. She noticed the way Eleanor's hands trembled when she reached for a cup and how her eyes lingered on old photographs of a younger, vibrant woman standing tall and laughing. She saw the flash of pain in Eleanor's face when she was wheeled past the grand ballroom, a room she hadn't entered in 2 decades. Grace learned that Eleanor's wounds were deeper than her legs. They were in her spirit, in the soul of a woman who felt forgotten by her own body. One evening, as a thunderstorm rattled the windows and the house was hushed, Grace found Eleanor weeping quietly in her room. "Do you know what it's like?" Eleanor whispered, her hands clutching her blanket. "To feel like you're already buried while still breathing? They look at me and see a relic. My son. He doesn't even believe I can try anymore." Grace knelt beside the wheelchair, her voice soft but steady. "You are not a relic. You are alive. And as long as you are alive, your body has not forgotten what it once did. It's just waiting for a reason to remember." Eleanor gave a bitter, trembling laugh. "Remind it? I haven't walked in 20 years. You think your hands can do what medicine couldn't?" "Not my hands," Grace said, her gaze unwavering. "Your will." It began in secret. Grace would wait until the staff had gone for the night and Daniel was in his study. The first few sessions were agonizing. Grace started with simple stretches and gentle massages, coaxing small movements from muscles that had been dormant for 2 decades. Eleanor protested at first, her frustration flaring into a white-hot anger. "Stop this nonsense," she would cry, her knuckles white from gripping the arms of her chair. "It's useless. The pain is unbearable." But Grace never stopped. She was a quiet force of nature, calm, steady, and persistent. She understood that Eleanor wasn't angry at her. She was angry at the decades of false hope and crushing disappointment. Day after day, Grace returned. She spoke to Eleanor not as a patient, but as a woman with a fight left in her. She shared stories from her own life, of struggles and resilience, of how she had been underestimated too many times. People only see what they want to see, Grace said once, her hands firmly rubbing Eleanor's calves. But that doesn't define what you are capable of. Only you do. Grace's words were a balm on Eleanor's soul, a comfort her son's quiet, resigned care could never provide. Grace saw the woman Eleanor had been, and she dared to believe in the woman she could be again. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, Eleanor began to respond. The first time her toes twitched, a shock of sensation she thought was lost forever, she gasped. The first time she managed to lift her foot an inch off the ground, a single tear of pure, unadulterated joy rolled down her cheek. I thought it was gone forever, she whispered. Grace smiled, her hands steadying the old woman's leg. It was never gone. It was just waiting for you to believe again. The sessions grew longer and harder. Eleanor sweated, cursed, and sometimes sobbed through the pain, but Grace pushed her, always with patience and unwavering belief. Grace would guide her through exercises, talking to her the entire time, telling her stories, and keeping her mind off the searing pain. One evening, after a particularly grueling session, Eleanor admitted, I'm terrified of what will happen if this doesn't work. The disappointment, I don't think I can bear it. Grace simply looked at her, her eyes filled with a quiet intensity. We are not doing this for the outcome. We are doing it because we are alive. Every step, every stretch is a victory. It's a way of saying, I am not broken. Every night, Eleanor went to bed aching, but with a flicker of something she hadn't felt in 2 decades. Hope. She kept it a secret from everyone. Daniel, the staff, everyone. Part of her feared the crushing disappointment if it all ended in failure. Another part wanted to protect this fragile, miraculous bond with Grace from the doubt of the outside world. This was their secret, a private battle waged against 20 years of despair. The days turned into weeks, the weeks into months. The flicker of hope in Eleanor's heart grew into a steady flame. She started eating better. Her eyes became brighter, and her voice gained a new strength. The staff noticed a change in her demeanor, a slight shift in her energy, but they couldn't pinpoint the cause. Daniel saw it too, but he dismissed it as a passing improvement in her mood. He had seen her spirits lift before, only for them to fall back down. The stormy evening mirrored the storm within Eleanor. After weeks of grueling effort, she was attempting to stand with Grace's help. Her chest heaved, her legs trembled violently, and sweat rolled down her temples. I can't do it, Grace, she gasped. Yes, you can. Grace's voice was low but firm, her hands a steady anchor. Don't think about what you can't do. Think about what you are doing. One more step, Eleanor. Just one more. And for the first time in 20 years, Eleanor's body answered her will. With a shuddering push, she rose from the chair. Her knees wobbled, her feet planted firmly on the carpet. The sensation of standing, of being on her own 2 feet again, was overwhelming. Her heart thundered in her ears, her arms trembled, and Grace steadied her, her eyes shining with fierce pride. I'm standing, Eleanor gasped, disbelief and joy mingling with her tears. Yes, Grace said, her own voice thick with emotion. And soon you'll dance again. Tears streamed down Eleanor's wrinkled cheeks. She let out a trembling laugh that sounded like it belonged to the younger woman she used to be. I can't believe it, she whispered. I thought my body had forgotten. Your body never forgets, Grace said softly. It just needed you to believe again. Eleanor's legs wobbled, and for a moment, she nearly collapsed back into the chair. But Grace caught her, her grip unyielding. The old woman's grip on Grace's hand tightened, refusing to let go. Then a smile, so wide and full of life that it startled even her, curved on her lips. You said I would dance again, she whispered, her voice both fragile and fierce. Then let's not wait another day. Grace blinked, taken aback. Eleanor, you're exhausted. Your muscles aren't ready for this. We should wait. But the old woman's hand squeezed hers tighter, silencing her. "If I fall, I fall," she said, her voice trembling but steady with resolve. "But if I don't try now, I'll never know what it feels like to live again." Grace hesitated for a long moment, then a slow, beautiful smile spread across her face. She shifted her weight, guiding Eleanor into a slow, waltz-like turn. The old woman's feet dragged at first, clumsy and heavy, but Grace moved with her, every step measured, every hold firm. Eleanor's satin nightgown swayed lightly as she shuffled forward, her slippers whispering against the polished wood floor. The air seemed to hum around them. Eleanor closed her eyes, and a flood of memories washed over her. Dancing with her late husband, with her young son, with friends at grand parties. One step flowed into another, and she found rhythm where she thought only stone remained. She leaned on Grace, yes, but her legs carried her, trembling but alive. Together they began to sway, an awkward shuffle at first, then a fragile, beautiful dance. A soft, breathless laugh escaped Eleanor's lips. "I remember this feeling. Oh, Grace, I remember." "Then don't let it go," Grace whispered. They circled the room, the single lamp casting a golden light over them. With each movement, Eleanor seemed to shed years of grief and silence. Her spirit, long dormant, flooded back into her frail frame. For 20 years, she had been a prisoner, and now she was free, even if only for this miraculous moment. The fear of falling was gone, replaced by the sheer joy of movement, of life. The door creaked open. Neither of them noticed at first, lost in their shared moment. Daniel Witmore stood frozen in the doorway. He had come to check on his mother after hearing faint noises upstairs, a gentle shuffling he hadn't heard in decades. What he saw stopped him cold. His mother, his fragile, broken mother, was standing. Not just standing, but dancing. Her hand was clutched tightly to the maid's, as if it were the only lifeline she had in the world. Eleanor's face was radiant, more alive than he had seen it in decades. Grace, her posture strong, guided her with unshakable steadiness. Her expression was filled with a rare kind of devotion. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. He had spent a fortune on specialists, begged science for miracles, but none of them had ever given him this sight. His mother smiling, laughing, her body moving to a rhythm of life again. He felt a sharp pang of guilt. He had loved her, cared for her, but he had also given up on her. He had seen her as a patient, not as a woman with a spirit that still yearned to be free. "Mother," he whispered, his voice cracking with disbelief and a deep, overwhelming awe. Eleanor turned her head toward the doorway. For a split second, she faltered, fear flickering in her eyes. It was a fear that his gaze might drag her back into the chair, back into the world she had just escaped. But then, Grace's hand tightened reassuringly around hers, grounding her. Eleanor straightened her back, her trembling legs steadying just enough. She held her chin high, tears still glistening on her cheeks, and a look of fierce pride settled on her face. "Daniel," she said, her voice breathless but firm. "I told you once that I was already buried while still alive. Look at me now. I am living again." His eyes blurred with tears, his chest heaving. "Mother, how is this possible?" Grace started to speak, but Eleanor cut her off, her voice firm despite her shaking body. She looked at her son, then at Grace, and a wave of fierce loyalty and gratitude washed over her. "Because she refused to let me rot," she said, her words a direct challenge to his years of quiet resignation. "She saw me when no one else did. She believed when even I could not. I will not let her go." The words carried a weight that silenced the room. Daniel's gaze shifted between the two women, the powerful figure his mother had once been, reborn in this fragile body, and the maid who had done what doctors and money could not. He finally understood that the true miracle wasn't the ability to walk. It was the unwavering belief that anything was possible, even when all hope seemed lost. The greatest gift Grace had given his mother was not the use of her legs, but the will to live again. The next morning, Eleanor was still weak but filled with a new energy. She sat in her wheelchair, a slight smile on her face. Daniel came to her room, a cup of tea in his hand, a look of profound humility on his face. He didn't say anything about the night before, he didn't need to. He simply pulled a chair close to hers and sat. Just sat. For the first time in years, the silence between them was not heavy. It was a comfortable, respectful silence. He had learned what he needed to learn. As for Grace, she continued her work. But something had changed. Eleanor was no longer a patient. She was a friend, a partner in a miraculous journey. Grace would arrive each day to find Eleanor already waiting, a look of determination in her eyes. The story of the millionaire matriarch who hadn't walked in 20 years became a whisper among the staff, then a tale of inspiration. But for Eleanor, it was simply the beginning. She never fully regained the spry, light-footed agility of her youth, but she could stand, and with Grace by her side, she could walk a little further each day. She could go back to the ballroom, not in her wheelchair, but on her own 2 feet. The grand Witmore estate was no longer a gilded prison. It was a home again, filled not with silence, but with the quiet, determined hope of a woman who had been given a second chance, and the profound, life-altering belief of the woman who had made the impossible possible.